Hello and welcome to the first ever full episode of Andy's Chopping at the Bit on Tuesday, November 15th. I'm Andy Wernett. Today I have decided I am going to talk about something pretty personal to myself, but it does represent a big problem in not just our country but globally for the most part. That topic is addiction. A lot of people struggle both with addiction and from the outside, people who know people with addiction don't really know how to address it, don't understand exactly the mentality behind it, why you do this, why you do that. Uh, and a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, with how we address addiction and to beginning with people. I recall as further back as the DARE program and even past that in middle school and high school, when they talked about addiction, they really focused on the bad consequences of addiction. You do this, do this, do this, and all this bad stuff happens. Which, for the general idea, is true on the extreme level. But the problem with saying all that and not giving the full transparent side of drug use, it kind of leads people to try certain drugs that they otherwise might not try. For instance, my case, the first time I tried smoking marijuana, I believe, a sophomore in high school. And up to that point, I'd heard so many bad things about marijuana, which is now legal. By the time, it was not. Um, and I remember trying it, and I'm like, oh, that's not as bad as they said. And no, I actually liked it more than advertised. And because of that state of mind, I realized that, or at least I felt in my mind that I'd been lied to from the general society on the harms of drugs. Because the reality is, and this is a hard one to swallow for even myself, and especially for people that have never used, the reason people relapse, the reason people use drugs to begin with, sad truth, they work. They're not good by any means. They have a lot of negative consequences too, a lot of negative consequences. But people aren't drawn to them just because they're rebelling. The reality is they're drawn to them because they have either depression or anxiety or whatever the case may be. And as bad as it is to say, they work. Um, what people don't realize that use them, including myself, is the consequences for taking the instant gratification rather than more healthy alternatives, healthier coping skills, healthier activities. Myself, I tend to be the adrenaline extreme kind of junkie guy. I always want to one up myself, whether it be cliff jumping, whether it be bungee jumping, climbing a mountain, all that stuff. I love that adrenaline, which is part of the reason I did what I did as far as my addiction. Trying something new that I never tried before, that adrenaline rush, that idea. Unfortunately, that's also extreme behavior. You can get adrenaline rushes much healthier ways, riding a motorcycle, going sailing, um, several other healthier ways. But that is not the route I took, unfortunately. Um, and it led me to try things, and then once I realized um, that what I'd been told growing up wasn't entirely true, or at least I was missing a lot of the truth, I tended to go to it almost instantly when I felt depressed, or when I felt anxious, or when I felt bored, even. Um, that's the reality of drugs. Unfortunately, is they do uh, they do work, but and in today's age, we're so used to that instant gratification uh, to a fault, and um, they do that. But obviously, they have long term consequences. They make you do things that you normally wouldn't do, to put simply. Best analogy for me to explain addiction to someone who's never dealt with it directly. Think of the movie, hopefully you've seen it, Lord of the Rings. Now take addiction right here and imagine it's the ring. Boom. Um, you're drawn to it out of curiosity. You try it, as in put on the ring. And then after that, you just want to go back to it. And the more you use it, the longer you use it, the more frequently you use it, the more you want it. Um, and you know it's bad. That's the thing. Um, you know that it's long term going to cause problems. Um, and it did. For me, it did. I did a lot of things I wouldn't have rationally done. I had bought a new car, and a couple months later, what did I do? I sold the car. Um, I sold it for drugs, to be exact. Brand new car, sold it for drugs. I wish that was where it ended. I cleaned up for a couple months, which definitely was a good thing. I did need to clean up. But last year, literally the day after Michigan State beat Michigan in football, I relapsed. And that relapse was by far the biggest relapse I had had. I ended up doing things I would never have done in a sober state of mind. I took stuff, stole stuff. Ended up getting arrested in January for a laundry list of um, regretful decisions that caught up to me, and I spent 6 months in jail in Kent County. Um, it was a hard 6 months, and here's the thing that I gotta let people know also: in jail, everyone thinks that you're away from drugs. This is your chance to clean up. That's not true. That's not true at all. You're going to find just as much drugs in jail as you will on the streets. In fact, you're going to be more surrounded by it. You're going to be more pressured to use it. It's more expensive, but it's also more readily available. And yeah, that's the reality of it. And also, addiction being considered a disease, you don't get any mental health help in in jail. Well, I should say any. You get very minimal mental health help. You don't have nearly the resources you should have for addiction. You don't have nearly the resources you should have for other mental health issues, such as PTSD, such as depression. They're really neglecting to help people while in there. The idea is to basically put you in a cage and keep you there for X amount of days and hope that that fixes the problem. And with COVID, it means that you're literally in your cell anywhere between 20 hours to some places the whole 24 hours every day. Um, so socialization is not the greatest. Not that it helped, to be honest with you, because there's a little saying, you don't go to jail to get better, you go to jail to become a better criminal. And unfortunately, there is some truth to that. But anyway, after I searched my 6 months, um, I was positive in my head that I was not going to use again. I mean, I was dead set that, okay, I'm not going to go down this road again. I'm not going to do what I just did. Um, then, literally, as I am leaving, as I'm getting picked up, I'm already planning out going back to the streets. Um, but my plan was, okay, I'll only do this for like this evening. That's all I'm going to do. Just one last hurrah, say goodbye to it. Boom, I'll get picked up tomorrow morning. I'll be off out of the area and never have to worry about it again. Um, that was the biggest lie I had told myself in quite a while. Because a few hours turned into a few days, which turned into doing what I was doing. And then 2 weeks later, going back to jail in Newaygo County for essentially the same dumb mistakes that I had already made 6 months earlier, or 6, 7 months earlier. Um, so finally, when I did get out of Newaygo this past time, uh, on bond, after a couple weeks of screwing up again, I finally made the right choice. I ended up going to inpatient rehab, and not just cleaning myself up, but understanding better uh, the whole thing of addiction. What I was getting to with this is um, a lot of things that people think are healthy for addicts and helping them prevent relapsing. Because I'd been into rehab before in 2017, so this wasn't my first rodeo, unfortunately. Realistically, most people that go into rehab, I guess the average, if I remember correctly, the average number of times it takes before someone, before the people that don't relapse, and before the ones that are successfully recovering. Usually they go through rehab, I want to say 3 times in their life. Um, so hopefully I don't go the third time. Hopefully I'm good. With that being said, uh, a lot of the problem that we have as a society, not just as a society, but as individuals with addiction, is shame and guilt. And the problem with those, um, we have this false belief that if you are, um, if you're afraid of letting people down because you're going to feel ashamed, because you're going to feel guilty for relapsing, um, it doesn't work as a deterrent. It really doesn't. And in fact, it makes problems worse if you do relapse. This is why. When you relapse, or when someone you know relapses, you want them to come back and get help right away. You want them to get back and back into the recovery, because relapse does happen, unfortunately, from time to time for many people. But when you have shame for what you're doing, when you have shame and guilt for your actions, the odds of you coming back, um, especially right away, are very, very, very slim. Because no one likes to admit they're wrong. No one likes to admit they made a mistake. And they're afraid to make that confession that they just slipped up, that they literally just threw away, well, they felt they threw away their progress and are back to square zero, which, including myself, I had that belief too. That was a strong part of my reason for not coming right back when I realized, oh man, I screwed up. But there shouldn't be that feel of shame, especially for yourself. Um, you wouldn't feel shame if you were diabetic and you went to, you had to take an insulin shot. You wouldn't feel bad about that. Um, you wouldn't feel bad if you had, I don't know, cancer and you had to get radiation treatment. Um, I know people have a hard time making that connection with other diseases, other health issues. A lot of people think, oh well, they don't truly take addiction seriously because they can't. It's hard to wrap your head around something that you physically or mentally haven't experienced. It's kind of like people that have never suffered from depression can't really understand how someone who has clinical depression struggles. They don't understand that you can't just pull yourself out of that. If it was that easy, they wouldn't have it. They wouldn't have medication for it if it was that easy. Let's be honest. That's the common sign that it's more serious than the everyday person thinks. Um, but same goes with addiction. It's not just like you're making a poor moral choice. There's much more into that than the everyday person would recognize. So there really shouldn't be shame for something like that. And then we have the shame of our past. That's the big one for me. Shamed of, oh, what if I did this? What if I did that? The hindsight thing. Um, there's a lot that goes into hindsight that we overthink things. That's the big one. And the concept is easy. The whole move on, look for what you have today. It's not easy to do, obviously. Um, the big thing for me was getting to the point where I could wake up and say, okay, yeah, I had a struggled past, um, but I'm not there anymore. Yeah, I relapsed, but I didn't lose everything I had before either. It just put my recovery on pause. I didn't lose everything. I didn't go back to square one because I already have that knowledge that I had earlier. Now I have this blip in it where I fell down, but I chose to get back up, and I can learn from getting back up what made me fall down, so I don't trip again through the same mistake. So it is a learning process. I think I'd say it was in the movie Creed on the Rocky series. Um, so Sylvester Stallone's character Rocky made the statement that life's cruel. You're gonna get knocked down, but life's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you get back up. And I really do believe that saying. It's a pretty good one. And the big thing about that is, as long as you're trying to get back up, you're not, you're not quitting. You're not giving up. People get knocked down. People relapse. That happens. Unfortunately, it does happen. If it didn't, addiction wouldn't be a problem, right? It would just be like a cold. You get over it and move on. But it's not that simple. So you're going to get knocked down. You're going to have to get back up. And you're not failing just because you got knocked down. You're failing when you stop getting up. You're failing when you quit. When you accept that you've been defeated and you have no intention of getting back up. That's the only time you've truly failed. But you always have the choice to get back up. That's the reality of it. It's not an easy choice because addiction. But if you ever get presented the opportunity, you still can make that choice. It's definitely not an easy one. But the big outlook that I had to take with myself, so I don't hold myself in shame, so I don't hold this disease I have over my head, is it's the concept of you can't enjoy the sun if you never have rain. Or the other one is if you always have sunshine, you'd never be able to see the stars. So look at it through that perspective. So the way I look at it is, yeah, I've went through a lot of tough times because of my addiction. A lot of tough times. With that being said, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have the knowledge of what I have today. Through my time with addiction, I met quite a few bad people, but in that same time, I also met quite a few good people that I would have never come across. So people that kind of got covered up by society or got covered up from their addiction that actually are good people, just in unfortunate circumstances. And made me who I am today. And the other benefit of being an addict, it's the only one I can think of really, it gives you a greater appreciation for life. It really does. Not when you're in active addiction, but when you're recovering, because things that everyday people would take for granted, you finally get to see it in a different lens. You value things in a different lens when you're clean. Like I said, people don't realize how much they have, how much good they have in their lives, and that includes people that aren't addicts. You don't realize how much you have around you to be thankful for, and because of my addiction, I was able to see some of that stuff. And of course, there were times where I felt bad because I took it for granted. But I'm here now. I'm clean now, and I can appreciate it now. So one of the hardest things about addiction is admitting that you were wrong about certain things, and growing and not holding a grudge over your head, or holding a grudge over other people's heads during your time of active addiction. That's another challenge, but I'm here today, and I'm glad to be here today. I'm talking to all of you folks on Chomping at the Bit. Probably bored you guys out enough with addiction, so I'll come back Thursday with another topic for Andy's Chomping at the Bit. In the meantime, Mondays through Fridays, we'll have a daily short clip, which is called the Daily Biscuit, which is just a random short trivial fact that I come up with every day. I do my best to fact check them before I present them. But that's all I got for you today. Have a great day. If you're in Michigan, you probably have some snow outside, so be ready this evening for possible shoveling, or snowmen, whatever you want to do, or skiing, or snowboarding. So have fun, and have a blessed day.